Hey there, my name is Alex, I am the Mont, and this is a review, of sorts, of Destiny 2. The game has been out for several years, as you are no doubt aware. I played it at launch and was very disappointed with it. Still, I went back recently and I think now is a good time to make a video on it. For starters, the game has been out for around 3 years as of this date, as it released around September 2017. And it's been 5 or 6 years since I made the nearest thing I ever got to a Destiny 1 review back in September of 2014. I played a lot of the first Destiny, and I always felt like it was a series with a lot of potential. The second game though was really underwhelming to me, although I appreciated that it was now on PC. Alright, and I have a clan, which you can join if you want, there's a link in the description. First up, I want to touch on my big issues that I had with the first Destiny, back at launch mind you. The game's story was underwhelming, and most of it revolved around go to location, scan an object, and then fight waves of enemies. The story was also presented to the player in a very bizarre manner, probably because nobody, developers included, actually knew what the story was at that point. Point in case, in my old video, I didn't even understand why the Fallen were called the Fallen, when they seemed to be more like space pirates. I didn't understand why we were fighting the Cabal, who were also opposed to the main enemies at launch, the Vex. A big part of this problem was the fact that all of the game's lore was hidden away on a website, not in the game itself. Aside from that, I also complained that the game's activities were too boring, outside of the raid, which was really fun, the Vault of Glass, but it was harder than it should have been to get into, because the game had no real social tools, no matchmaking, no chat. I also remarked on how the classes of the game weren't all that distinct from one another. They were all, by and large, Space Marine with different flavours of grenades and I win buttons. All the same, I stuck with Destiny 1 throughout, and I even made some lore videos on it as I do like the setting and I enjoy the lore, I find it fun to talk about. But then Destiny 2 came out, and I tried it on PC, and it was bad. Bungie themselves have stated that it was a bad idea to just throw away everything from Destiny 1 and start over with Destiny 2. And I was saying that back at the time. Why would you not just continue to support Destiny 1 and expand upon it? But if you didn't play Destiny 2 at launch, well, you're quite lucky in that aspect. It was not good. It ran really well on PC. It was very disappointing that it was still 30 FPS on the consoles. But it ran well on PC, it was optimised well, and the core gameplay felt really good. But the story was nonsensical. It was extremely short, and because exotic weapons and class abilities were so strong in the first game, Bungie made exotics feel useless, and abilities had really long cooldowns in order to make PvP more about the guns, making it feel balanced. That's a big no-no. For starters, what is Destiny about? Is it about guns? No, it is about being a space wizard, a space marine, a space hunter. It is about getting really powerful equipment, not specifically guns. Those should not be the focus. If your game is not 100% PvP, like say Heroes of the Storm or Counter-Strike, then letting PvP dictate the flow of the game is a fool's endeavour. Nobody will be happy. In addition, there wasn't really anything to do other than grind the same activities time and time again. It felt very repetitive, all whilst being exploited by a pretty bad cash shop and DLC add-ons that were not good. I believe Curse of Osiris was the first one, and they were charging, well, not full price, but they were charging a decent amount for a campaign that was like 5 minutes long. But oh man, that cash shop. Shaders were single-use items for some insane reason. But well, how is Destiny 2 now, 3 years on? For starters, the Destiny experience as a whole has far more set-piece moments that were missing initially. There's less go here, scan this, fight enemies tripe. Things feel suitably more grand in scale, as they should. The lore of the game is now viewable and readable in-game, and there's a lot of it, which I appreciate. Now, I'll admit, I've barely read any of it for Destiny 2 right now, but that's because I've been so preoccupied with other things, but I love that the fact that there is all this stuff I can go through and read. I am a fan of that. At the same time, I understand why some people think that is bad storytelling. Same logic applies to Dark Souls. People say all of the storytelling in Dark Souls comes from just reading item descriptions. Whilst I understand that complaint, it's not necessarily true because Dark Souls does utilize more environmental storytelling. Something I haven't really noticed in Destiny, but that is also because a lot of the pace in Destiny is not really set so that you can take the time to enjoy the scenery. Now, of course, you can go just out on a patrol and explore at your leisure, but during most activities, no. The narrative, though, feels far more structured to me, as if they have an actual clue of where they are going, or at least they are better at hiding their lack of direction. No more, I don't have time to explain why I don't have time to explain. And no more, I could tell you about interesting things that happened that explain your your questions, but I won't. I'm Bill Nye, not the science guy. The classes, well, that problem still exists in a sense, but it's not so much a problem now as the game is a lot more clear. You don't choose between a wizard or a soldier. You are always a guardian. That is your class. You all use the powers of the light. Would I like to see more to specialize the different roles from a hunter, warlock, and titan? Of course. Things have improved some. They do feel slightly more distinct than just having different colors of grenade and I win buttons now, though. Do you want to play more of a support role? Well, you won't be straight up healing people, but as a Titan, you can create your Superdome that buffs your allies and makes them invincible. A Warlock can create a flaming aura that likewise enhances allies who step within it, and Hunters can fire a shadow bow at enemies to leave them invulnerable. And the exotics are starting to become fun and interesting and exciting again. There's less emphasis on things like make your class ability pulse out a healing aura when you use it for your barricade as a Titan, for example, which is not very fun. The ruinous effigy that's recently been put in, for example, when you destroy enemies with this laser cannon, it transmutes them into a sphere of darkness that you can then pick up and dunk on other enemies, which is very stupid, but very fun, and that's what we want to see from an exotic. When I'm playing my Titan, I can equip the Dune Marchers, I think they're called, some boots that make it so that when I melee an enemy, it will chain lightning everywhere, and I can combine that with the class that lets me throw out a hammer, and as long as I pick up that hammer, I can keep throwing it out, and it's also going to be chaining lightning when it hits enemies, so it makes me some sort of fire lightning Thor. Or I can equip the insurmountable skull fort, and I can keep flying through the air like a missile. It's stupid, it's not the most effective way to play, but it's fun. That's what matters. That's a lot more fun than going, oh, I have the unending death vortex with perfectly rolled perks and stats for optimal DPS. I can still do that if I want, but I like having the option to play in fun and gimmicky playstyles. I think that's important. Arguably, the best feature of the Destiny experience, in my opinion, the raids, have been expanded upon into more regular content in the form of dungeons. Now, whilst I used to call strikes dungeons, now we literally have something called dungeons, which you could think of as three-man raids. They are driven more by objectives and puzzles, and specific mechanics and things. These are the best damn thing Bungie have put in. We need more of these. Now, sadly, I haven't been able to touch any of the new raids yet, but I'm hoping to before the launch of the game's next expansion, which I think is getting rid of the whole Leviathan raid thing. Maybe by the time I've published this video, fingers crossed. I'd love to check them out after all. Right now I'm playing with like 2 other people, so we have a fire team of 3. Need to find 3 more people, you know? Aside from that, Bungie have added a lot of content to keep you occupied in the game. There are a lot of quests to go through now, including exotic quests that give you a surefire way to get a powerful item at the end if you follow through the steps with patience. Now, I'm not a huge fan of how a lot of them involve the PvP in Crucible as well. It's not something I'm super keen on in Destiny, especially now on PC because everyone is god aiming and knows all the best weapons. It's like I try and shoot someone and they just like zip around me and like instantly headshot me, and I'm just bad, okay? I will freely admit I'm not very good at first-person shooters. But yeah, it's my preference. I would much prefer if we had multiple paths to take. By all means, PvP can be the most effective way. Give me a slower way to grind things out too. I just suck at using hand cannons in the Crucible. All of this content that they've added, You might think, oh wow, lots of content, that's good. And yes, lots of content is good. But if you were starting Destiny 2 right now, today, chances are you're going to be overwhelmed and you're not going to understand what's going on. It's not very clear for new players. If you have a friend who plays, then that's good because they can talk you through it. They can explain what this is, what that is, what you should do first, what you should be aiming for. But if you're just starting out, you're going to be pretty lost and there's going to be a lot of things that you, in a month or two, you wished you knew, but you didn't because Bungie didn't really explain it. They haven't focused on making that new player experience good. Now, how this changes in the expansion coming soon, we don't know. But if they don't really fix the issue, well, I'm going to be compelled to make a Destiny 2 starter guide so that people have some sort of resource. And, I'm sure there are resources. I'm sure there's someone out there with 2 million subscribers who makes, good Destiny videos. It's not going to stop me making my video, because I like making videos. What can I say? But how about if we compare Destiny 2 now with the launch? Well, the latter campaigns have improved a lot from the launch one, to the point where it looks like they are straight up removing the launch campaign, the Red War campaign, with the next expansion. So if you're interested, you might want to hop in and do that now before it seems to be gone forever. And yes, Destiny 2 and the first 3 campaigns are completely free, which is nice. We are getting some more Destiny 1 content coming back, which is really nice to see. But they have started to experiment more with letting the players be powerful again, which is nice. We don't want exotic weapons because they are, exotic. We want them because they are powerful, as I mentioned earlier. We want crazy weapons. Do you know the way to keep players happy in a game like Destiny or Diablo? Give them a good drop rate on items and weapons. Make those weapons desirable. Shower the player with items, basically. All in all, I'm very pleasantly surprised to see how Destiny 2 has turned around since launch. I think it's a very fun game now, because there is a lot to do, a lot to see for most levels of players. But how about the cash shop? Well, at launch, every time you leveled up past maximum level, you would get a bright engram, which would contain a cash shop item. Those still exist in the game, but you only get them through leveling up in the Season Pass, of which there are 2 varieties. The free version, which is where you get the cash shop items every 5-10 levels, something like that. And then the premium version, which costs 1,000 silver, which I want to say is maybe $10 to $20, somewhere in that ballpark. And it means you get a bunch of extra stuff. Nothing super crucial, but standard sort of things you would expect for in these sort of games, like more resources, more items, maybe some bonus experience, blah blah blah. There are essentially 2 currencies in the cash shop. Silver that can only be obtained with real money, and bright dust that can be acquired in-game without too much trouble. Some items can only be obtained with silver, and I believe some of these items do not exist in these bright engrams. For example, the finishers, which are just, if you go up to an enemy who has 15-20% health, you can do a button and get a cool cinematic finisher on them. And you can buy more of these, different animations, for real money, and I don't think there's any other way to get them outside of maybe 1 or 2 from the Season Pass. But things have improved some since launch. Every item you obtain, almost, is added to a collection now, meaning you can recreate it from that collection, which is a very lore-friendly way of doing it because, so far as I remember, all of the items in Destiny, these engrams, they're basically USB sticks that you decode to get the equipment, blueprints for that equipment stored within. If I remember correctly, don't quote me on that, I know it says something vaguely like that. So it makes sense that we can just pull these items from our collection once we have the corresponding data. Shaders are still a single-use item, but now you can create as many of them as you want from your collection if you've obtained one of them at any point, so that's a good compromise. Now granted, I still think shaders should be infinite use, and that is a nice way to transition into the last part of this video. What would I like to see in the future of Destiny 2? Well, I'll start with more reasonable demands, more dungeons, and then glamour, or layered armor, layered weapons, or transmog, or as Destiny puts it, ornaments, universal ornaments. The ability to cosmetically change one item into that of another. It is a very important feature in my opinion. Apparently this is a feature that is coming in the near future, but I hope they do not make it restrictive. Let us use items freely from our collection. Don't make us pay for it. Not real money, at least. Glimmer is fine because Glimmer's the game's main currency and it's pretty easy to obtain and keep maxed out. I would also like it if we could have channel dyes, or more specifically, dye our armor with far more control over what bit is what color. The game could have a very in-depth system there, honestly, considering we already have material and colors. Like, you could make your armor look leathery or shiny, you know? Why not let us control this more in depth? Why not let us fine-tune how our guardians look? For the time being, a glamour, a transmog system will be fine too. I have all these items that I want to use, and I am using them at the moment, even though like they don't have mod sockets on, like the year 1 Iron Banner gear that I have, the year 1 PvP gear I have. I'm not taking off my Iron Banner gauntlets, and you will not make me take them off, Bungie, so give me glamour. Next up, the game really needs some more tools for communication and matchmaking. Text chat on the PC is a nice start for sure. Why not let us have a party finder system? I don't think that would be too hard to implement at the end of the day, and it would save us from using external tools. If you don't know what a party finder is, Final Fantasy XIV's is a great example. When you bring up the party finder UI, you can filter it by, say, activity, like, say, dungeons, raids, and so on. So you can go, I'm looking for a party that is going to do the Leviathan raid. And then if you're making a party, you can say, you must have a power level of this or above, and you can say beginners friendly, or we want veterans for a quick run. You understand? It's an in-game interface to find a group with another player. It's not an automated system though, it's not the same thing as Duty Finder and Dungeon Finder, but it's very similar. But a very useful tool. Destiny has these sort of tools, but they're external, and I believe they're done by a third party. There's the Destiny LFG tool, I think it's called. Assuming that still runs. That's what me and my friends used to use when we needed like 1 or 2 people to fill up our raid back in the day in Destiny 1. Now, next up, a slightly more unreasonable desire in some ways, but I want the ability to have more races and for the races to actually, well, matter. Do we need full racial abilities like in WoW? Not really, although I'd not say no to traits. Even if they're largely pointless, I like that sort of flavour to a class, like perhaps Exos can do this, humans can do this and Awoken can do that. Doesn't have to be anything game-changing, just very minor things. We could at least get a finisher unique to each race, right? And really, we need to be able to play as the Fallen, and perhaps another race. I know Fallen don't have the light, but we do have Mithrax, I think his name is. He is the Kel, I think, of the House of Light. I don't feel like it would be a huge stretch to either make it so that they are accepted into the the Traveler's Light, or to make it so that they have some other form of light. I mean, let's face it, the Awoken are lame, the Fallen are cool. Of course, Exo are still the best, but having options doesn't hurt. Whether they are accepted by the Light or join Guardians some other way, I don't really mind, but the House of Light are quite literally allied with the Tower now, so there's no real reason aside from them not having light powers for them not to be playable. Hell, you could even make them called like a... I was about to say you could make them like a master race, but that... Yeah, you could make it like they are an expert race. Maybe they don't have the light. Maybe they don't have the ability to respawn in the same way, so they're harder to play. You know, I'm just spitballing ideas here, but I'd love to see the Fallen added as a playable race. I'd love to see 1 or 2 more races added to the game. Right now, there isn't a huge point in offering races at all. There's nothing different about them. All you really see is in the tower, oh, you have a human, you have a blue human, or you have a robot human. So let us have the House of Light join. And who knows, maybe for the other race, some sort of proto-hive could arrive, led by, what was their name, Tauix? You could give them spins on the default classes. Maybe they'd be knights, wizards, and something else instead of titans and warlocks. Effectively, they would still play the same, they would just be called a knight instead of a titan. To that effect, I think it'd be nice, and this is a very reasonable, not demand, but desire, I think it'd be great to have cosmetic customization for our abilities. Even if the ability itself stays the same, it would be nice to say have like an arc dragon striker, where instead of being a missile that flies around during your ultimate, you turn into a dragon and you fly around and explode into the ground. How about a hive-touched warlock who has green fire instead of, orange fire? Cosmetic choices, they don't really change gameplay, but are little things to change it up. They could have their own little exotic style quests to unlock them. I could go on, there's limitless possibilities for these sort of options. I don't think they would be too hard to implement, and if you really wanted, you could make them cash shop items, but they really shouldn't do that. They should just be quests in the game to unlock these different playstyles. Not even playstyles, just cosmetic choices like finishers. Put them behind a quest line, let people go for the ones they want. Also, we need spears as a weapon. That really wouldn't be hard to implement, even if you just consider them as swords with reskinned models. You probably wouldn't even need to change the animations, although you could a little bit. I'm not going to complain. That said, I'll also not complain if you give me, say, I don't know, an exotic Valkyrie spear primary that's permanent. Maybe I'd accept a heavy. Just saying, give me some sort of spear. But yes, I'll stop now as this video will otherwise be, 5 hours long. Thank you so much for watching though. What do you think of Destiny 2? If you hated Destiny 2 at launch, maybe now's the time to give it a shot. Play the first 3 campaigns for free before they vanish with the next expansion. Oh, and for content vaulting, I think there's a better solution, but I don't hate it, especially because there's always the possibility for it to come back. Anyway, once again, if you want to join the clan, check the link, and until next time, take care. Ciao.